Hello everyone, this is Mathfinder, the home for every math nerd's Pathfinder optimization needs. If you're new here, welcome, and we're so glad to have you. If you've been here before, welcome back, and thank you so much for your continued support. Today's video is going to be a really short one. I saw this spell being used by an animus in a game I was GMing a few days ago, and it was just so good and so powerful that I felt the need to revive the underrated spell series for a brief, quick video about Pernicious Poltergeist. Pernicious Poltergeist is a 4th rank spell on the Divine and Occult spell lists. It has a 60-foot range and creates a 10-foot burst in that range, and it can be sustained up to a minute. More on the sustain later. When you cast it, it offers you the choice in what saving throw you wish to target, and that's part of what makes the spell so unique. On a basic Fortitude save, any one target will take 4d10 void damage. On a will save, each target in the area, if they fail, will become frightened 2. And on a basic reflex save, there's 4d8 force damage to each target in the area. So this spell can target all 3 saving throws. And if you look at the damage types and traits of these effects, this spell is practically irresistible. It's kind of impossible to run into a situation where this spell will have an enemy that's resisting a huge portion of the damage or is immune to it. Void and Force are an incredibly good couple of damage types to pair up. Void will target any living creature, which means constructs and undead are immune to it, but then Force will cover those anyways. So the Void is kind of all upside. You will get to have the option for high single target damage to a living creature if you need it, and you can just ignore it if it's not relevant. Likewise, the will save does have the emotion and mental traits, but you can just not use it if the enemy is mindless or immune to emotion for any reason. And you'll notice that everything about this spell is tailor-made to cover the Divine and Occult spell list's weaknesses. It has a 60-foot range on a spell list where a lot of the good spells tend to have a 30-foot range. I know by 4th rank that kind of stops being true, but even so, it's nice to have a longer range spell. It creates an area control effect in spell lists that don't necessarily have the best area control effects. It can target all 3 saving throws, which is fantastic because Divine and Occult sometimes struggle to find good effects in certain saving throws. Occult, for example, has a high concentration of will, a moderate amount of fortitude, and a low amount of reflex. And finally, the flexibility of the spell means you're not likely to run into damage-type resistances or trait immunities. All of these combined are just so good for a Divine or Occult spellcaster, especially a prepared one. I talked about this in my Prepared Casters video linked above. Prepared casters love multimodal spells, a single spell slot that can adapt to any kind of encounter you might face is a very high value pick on prepared spellcasters, like clerics and animus in this case. It means that you're that much less likely to run into a situation where you wanted to target fortitude 3 times a day, but you only prepared 2 of your spell slots for fortitude, and now you're stuck targeting something bad. So this spell is fantastic for Divine and Occult spellcasters, and it's fantastic for prepared casters. One of the nicest things about this spell is that each time you sustain it, you can flip the effect you want. You can open with the will save, for example, to debuff a bunch of enemies and weaken their offenses as well as their defenses to let your marshals burst them down a little quickly. Once they've been whittled down, you have the option of switching to the reflex mode if you want to just keep doing some AoE poke damage, or the fortitude mode if you want to concentrate single target damage, which is slightly higher than the AoE force damage, or if your melee friends have all got mixed up in the AoE burst and you no longer want to do AoE options at all. The fact that each time you sustain this, you can change up which effect you use is just amazing. So overall, this is a really good spell. It does have a couple of weaknesses though. The biggest one is that it's heightened +2, which means as you level up, it will fall off relatively quickly. By say level 11 or so, I don't know if it's worth using, even though it's just heightened. And by level 13, it's almost definitely not worth using. And the second weakness is that it is a stationary AoE, but this weakness's problems are a lot less problematic because it's multimodal. For example, like I said, one of the big weaknesses of a stationary AoE is that it messes with your melee friends. But this spell doesn't have to, because you can just switch to the single target mode when needed. Likewise, if enemies move out of this AoE, your friends don't have to get multiple of the enemies back into the area to generate more value. Getting one is enough because you can use a single target mode on them, and then if you happen to have multiple enemies inside the area, then you'll switch back to the multi-target modes. So despite these couple of weaknesses, I think Pernicious Poltergeist is a fantastic spell. Like I said, this video was prompted by an animist player in one of my campaigns using it, and I had to do a triple take because I was like, there's no way there's a spell this good on the Divine spell list. But no, it turns out there is. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you didn't know about the spell before, you pick it on some of your casters in the future. That will be all for today's video, folks. Let me know if you enjoyed this shorter video. These tend to be much easier to record, and thus I can cover topics that I wouldn't cover in my typical 30+ minute fare, because these are like 5 to 15 minutes when they come out, much easier to record, much easier to edit and put together. I can also probably record these much more frequently because of that. So if you do want to see more of this shorter content, please like and comment. Comment what other topics you'd like to see me cover that I probably couldn't justify covering for 30+ minutes. If you'd like to see more comment from me in the future, please subscribe and maybe click that channel bell button that turns on notifications for you. And finally, consider joining a channel membership. I'm currently trying to push for growth on this channel, and of course, every single thing I mention helps, but channel memberships are the most direct way to support me and to show YouTube that you want to support me, which is great for the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Mathfinder out.